Cuba, that 740-mile-long Caribbean island nation of 11 million people, has been a forbidden land of mystery to most Americans since the U.S. embargo on trade with the communist-run country began more than 50 years ago, at the height of the Cold War. And that is why in 2012, before the recent agreement between Presidents Barack Obama and Raul Castro reopening U.S. Cuban relations, 32 people jumped at an offer from the Culver City, California Chamber of Commerce to tour Cuba under a U.S. Treasury Department program licensing a few people-to-people cultural exchanges. Senator Marco Rubio of Florida unsuccessfully tried to block the program, sniffing that it was just tourism that would attract Fidel Castro sympathizers. Actually, what attracts many signing up for this tour is the specific detailed inclusion of the historic Bay of Pigs and the beautifully preserved colonial city of Trinidad on the Caribbean south coast. Playa Girón has a battle museum. Trinidad is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The brochure, however, contains a fateful asterisk. Hotels and itinerary are subject to change. Well, that proves to be true. At Culver City's Veterans Memorial Auditorium 2 weeks before the trip, after we have paid in full, tour company rep Aphrodite Pastrumas reveals that we will see neither the Bay of Pigs nor Trinidad. The tour rep blames a government-run Trinidad hotel for overbooking. Instead, we are to go to the Atlantic coast in the north. But couldn't anybody find us another hotel on the south coast? The lady does not say. You meet many Americans. What are the main misconceptions they have before they get here?
There are so many about Fidel. A lot of them, they do not know really who he was or who he is still, what he have been doing for all of us. They do not believe that we really love him. You have the idea that we are all like oppressed under a regime, and we do not see things exactly like that.
What would you like Americans, norteños, to learn about Cuba while they're here?
Our love for our country.
Although the tour rep had told us we would be staying at the first-rate Cohiba Hotel and at the somewhat run-down Havana Libre, we end up only at the Havana Ibe in the Vedado district, run by a Spanish company. Nice people, but hot water for showers is unreliable. At the front desk, we exchange dollars for kooks, convertible pesos foreigners must use. Castro convertibles, you could call them. With exchange fees, a kook costs $1.15. Ordinary Cubans use Cuban pesos worth 4 cents. The average Cuban salary is $25 a month. In this two-currency economy, only those lucky Cubans with access to kooks can buy most goods worth having.
I wonder what the important things are that we need.
The old Morro Casa Lighthouse at dawn and sunrise over the old Capitol building. Havana's shore and the Gulf Stream, almost like my father saw it in the 1920s. The Havana Libre opened under Batista as the Havana Hilton. Though it has changed, the cars going by have not. The first thing you notice in Cuba, aside from the tropical swelter, is a rolling museum. American autos of the 1940s and 50s, kept on the road by the planet's most ingenious mechanics. My childhood, déjà vu. Nadie te Most cars are Big 3 Detroit iron, but where else can you see one of George Romney's Ramblers, an extinct Studebaker, an Aero Willys, or even a Henry J. Also, muchos old Russian Ladas and Moskviches. From the hotel balcony, city vistas, Fidel's alma mater, the famous Copalia ice cream stand, the turkey buzzards soaring everywhere in Cuba. Groups from the several chambers on the trip are divided into 3 buses, blue, red, and Culver City's orange. We don't mind that the buses are Chinese Yutangs, as long as the toilet works, which often it does not. But Jesus the driver is an ace, and off we go on our Culver City travel adventure. The second thing you notice after the vintage cars is the crumbling condition of La Havana, a city of 2.1 million. Some restoration work is being done on the city's faded pastel beauty. But when Cuba fully reopens to the U.S., I want the Sherwin-Williams paint franchise. First stop, the Bocoy Rum Factory, more of a rum museum selling premium cigars, contraband in the U.S., and the inevitable Che t-shirts. Giant Revolution Plaza, opened by Batista in 1958 as Civic Plaza, where Fidel and 2 popes have delivered speeches. There's a big statue of Martí, and on the Information Ministry an even bigger Che. Camilo Cienfuegos, whose airplane vanished in 1959, gets the Interior Ministry. Classic convertibles serve as taxis. Behind the square, government buildings house the offices of Raúl and his counselors. Raúl presides over an egalitarian but struggling socialist life for Cubans. Necessities are rationed. Rations are lower than in Soviet alliance days. Monthly now, 10 eggs, 1 to 2 pounds of chicken, 9 pounds of rice, less than a pound of beans. Milk and meat hard to come by. Some city dwellers raise pigs. Rent is free, but houses, like buses, are overcrowded, with Cubans often packed into converted trucks. Life, Alicia tells us, is under stress. Dissidents still face arrest, and if neighborhood vigilante committees aren't enough to keep up the revolutionary spirit, there is no shortage of billboard slogans. The U.S. embargo is blamed for hardships, selfless hard work is glorified, and life is painted as worse in the United States, where the 1% oppress the 99%. Old Havana. Bygones are bygones as the flag of Spain flies over the mother country's embassy. A street mural depicts colonial times when the Baroque cathedral was built. Outside the cathedral, cliché costume Cubans pose for tourists like the Darth Vaders at Grauman's Chinese.
Okay, this is part of the elements of the architecture of old Havana. This is an old mailbox. This one is not working anymore.
In the Plaza de Armas, a tribute to Céspedes, a father of the nation, and Spain's hulking 18th century captain generalcy that served as the Cuban Republic's first presidential palace. In the next plaza, Havana was founded in 1519. Devotees of the Santeria religion march 3 times around the Kapok tree here for good luck. The Ambos Mundos Hotel, where Hemingway lived and wrote in Harborview Room 511 from 1934 to 1939. across from the Central Rail Station, the house where Jose Marti was born. From there, lunch, included in the tour price. Over in modern central Havana, the Prado is the city's longest and busiest promenade. The Bacardi building, from which the family fled to make its rum in the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. The pavilion housing Grandma, the 1957 student attack delivery truck, and the only relics we will see from the Bay of Pigs. The presidential palace is now the Museum of the Revolution, still riddled with the bullet holes of 1957. Here you can see Batista's desk and a portrait of the hapless Tomás Estrada who gave away Guantanamo Bay. In contrast to the lionization of Fidel, Che, and Camilo is the Corner of the Cretins, lampooning Batista, Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, and especially W. Eisenhower and Kennedy are spared. The former Capitol, now the Science Ministry, a fine place to view classic cars, except that the owners demand to get paid for photos and get mad if they're not. Next door, Havana's most distinguished building, the Grand Theater, designed by a Belgian and opened in 1915. Nearing our hotel, we pass Meyer Lansky's Riviera. Fidel closed all the casinos in 1960. And then we pass the famous Nacional on its Malecon hilltop. That prompts some of us to drop by the Nacional after dinner. Walking, we share the Malecon sunset with Cubans gazing toward Key West. At the beautiful Nacional, Irma Hawkins enjoys a mojito. Take that, Marco Rubio. Under threatening skies, a drive to Columbus Cemetery, where greats including the Buena Vista Social Club's Ibrahim Ferrer are entombed, all above ground. In our first people-to-people exchange, the people happen to be dead. In the Jaimanitas neighborhood, artist Jose Fuster has turned his house and nearby homes into a Picasso-like fantasy land. It makes for a natural tourist stop. At the National Literacy Museum, we are indoctrinated with the regime's 1961 campaign that sent volunteer city students to the countryside to teach 707,000 campesinos reading and writing by the light of Chinese-made lamps. A nice lunch included in the upscale Miramar Embassy District, followed by modern Cuban art at the Fine Arts Museum, and dinner at a seafood joint, Don Cangrejo, or Sir Crab. A night of music for 50 cooks a ticket at the Nacional. Though misleadingly billed as the Buena Vista Social Club, Grupo Segundo proves that, as in Hemingway's time, Havana is a great place to get drunk and dance. Oh, and the third thing you notice in Cuba is a certain inescapable ballad about a peasant woman from an eastern province. On the itinerary, the 167-mile drive to Santa Clara, a provincial capital of 251,000. Aboard the bus, people-to-people gifts we have brought. Cubans love baseball, and Barry Sulkin gives away 80 baseballs, 18 mitts, and a bat. Just off the national highway, the stadium that bankrupt Cuba built for the 1993 Pan-American Games. Yo voy a cuatro caminos, son con la malla y viro para atrás. Pupu, cha cha, pupu, cha cha. At a rest stop, a teasing road sign points to the Bay of Pigs, just 38 miles south. But we don't turn off. We browse through the rest stop's curios, Che postcards, and shelves of left-wing books.
I've been in several other Hispanic countries. I've been in Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Argentina, Mexico, and Spain. But I've never seen a level of poverty in general of almost everyone to compare with what we see here. And the dilapidation in those other countries, they have certain areas that look dilapidated, not kept up so well, but I've never seen any to compare with the ones that we saw in Havana.
I've liked the fact that I feel like I've learned so much about what's going on in Cuba and what's been happening in Cuba and what it's like. I mean, what I don't like is the poverty, and it's just the crumbling buildings, and it's very, very depressing.
Though devoted to Fidel, Alicia candidly acknowledges government mistakes, especially failing to increase agriculture during or after the years of Soviet handouts. In Santa Clara, real people-to-people. Seniors at a cultural center dance energetically with each other, then with the tourists. Lunch at Los Canellas restaurant, and what other song would they be playing? Che Guevara's remains, repatriated in 1997, are reverently entombed, no photography allowed inside, at Santa Clara, site of his great military victory. Here, Fidel's cult of his guerrilla compañero reaches its zenith. Instead of heading south from Santa Clara to popular Trinidad on the Caribbean, admittedly over a steep mountain road, we turn northeast to Key St. Mary in the gardens of the King Archipelago on the Atlantic coast. Mangroves line the 10-mile ocean causeway to the Keys.
Canadians and Europeans have been relaxing in winter at Cuban resort hotels like this for decades, but Americans under the People-to-People program are really not supposed to have such a good time. But unabashed tourism may be opening up for Americans soon.
Back over the 10-mile causeway to Caibarien, a quiet coastal town. We buy art from painter Carlos Mas, whose wife works at our resort hotel, then tour the town's Plaza Mayor. Jesus rescues us from a rain shower and drives us 1 block to a children's concert. In sugarcane country, next stop is a once flourishing sugar mill, now a museum. Even sugar in Cuba is not what it used to be. In 2003, the government closed 73 sugar mills because of low international prices. Senoras press some cane so we can taste sugar juice, jugo de caña, which is, well, sugary. Then, a happy surprise.
Some of you can go.
The old plantation steam train carries us to the next town, Remedios, where our bus drivers await. A woman from another bus makes the mistake of offering handouts to 1 or 2 kids. A dozen swarm her. Peaceful Remedios has a picturesque church with a representation of Our Lady of Charity of Cobre, Cuba's patroness. Other attractions, a bar with a 1950s car theme, and a chance for Nancy Block to buy a Fidelista cap. Back over the causeway to spend a whole afternoon, hours we theoretically could make a run for Trinidad or Playa Girón, at the Palmy Resort for salsa lessons or the Windy Beach. The place was secluded, the food was included, but Senator Rubio, I plead guilty to committing tourism. Back again over the causeway on what was originally to be Bay of Pigs Day. At least we finally reached the Caribbean at steamy Cienfuegos. One gem here, the 1889 Tomas Terry Theater, gift of a sugar millionaire, where Caruso sang and Pavlova danced. At the Hotel Jagua, more cultural exchange, the superb a cappella Cantadores de Cienfuegos, directed by the striking Miel Morera.
It says in the literature that there will be plenty of time to talk to different groups of people and individuals, but there really isn't, because just when you might want to talk to the old people or the children or the singers that we heard singing or any of these groups, we're whisked away in 5 minutes.
In fact, we are whisked off to lunch at the Moorish Palacio del Valle, mansion of another long-departed capitalist sugar king. Then, on Cuba's sadly empty highways, we motor 159 miles back to Havana.
case of the Americans, this is like a cultural and a historic exchange. Very interested in everything. All our history, our culture, so they're very respectful, they pay a lot of attention.
What country is the best tippers?
Americans. Americans.
And who are the cheapest?
The Argentinians.
At last, a close-up view of El Castillo del Morro, the fortress of the promontory. The 17th century structure, built to protect the great Spanish treasure fleets, offers some of the best views of Havana. Finca Vigía, Hemingway's lookout farm in suburban San Francisco de Paula.
Okay, it's good. So now I can really hear
The novelist bought the 15-acre estate in 1940 with royalties from For Whom the Bell Tolls. No colony of six-toed pussycats here, as at Hemingway's Key West estate, but plenty of mementos. Hemingway built the Watchtower with its fine view of Havana, but did little writing in its studio. The swimming pool, headstones for 4 pet dogs, and a tourist highlight, Hemingway's 38-foot game fishing boat, the Pilar. Built in Brooklyn in 1934, she sailed to Cuba and all the islands in the stream. In Guanabacoa, a museum of Santeria, the faith of 25% of Cuba. African slaves created Santeria, but Santeria's Orisha, saints, have Catholic counterparts. When Desi Arnaz sang to Baba Lou Aye, he was pleading for a woman, money, and tobacco.
I like the music very much. I like the culture. I like just seeing how the people live, how they get around. Like in the country, they're running in horse carts.
Across Havana Harbor is Regla, its old church well known for its Black Virgin and its fortune tellers. One seer reads Marcia Brewer's palm as Gary Brower looks on.
It was a deal gone bad because I ended up trading a palm reading for my tarot cards, and then she called over the bead dude, and I had to pay 3 cooks for the yellow beads, and then on top of that, she wanted me to give 1 cook for the bambino, the little statue of a black baby.
After lunch in Old Havana, we experience Cuba's pushy new private enterprise at the crafts market. Most of the merchandise is pretty tacky, but I do spend a kook on a Che fridge magnet, while Irma buys a t-shirt.
Viva Che!
Dinner at Dominica in Old Havana, and yet another round of The Song. After dinner, a bar crawl through Hemingway's Old Havana. We tune in to El Ritmo Cubano, the rhythm of an Afro-Latin island. First, the bar about which Hemingway wrote a little poem. my mojito en la bodeguita, my daiquiri en el Floridita.
Detrás de la compuesta se va echando un
People to people, but sometimes the people turn out to be from Argentina. Alicia, riding with some hungover passengers toward western Pinar del Rio province, breaks exciting news. Months before anyone expected, the government is easing restrictions on Cubans' ability to travel abroad. A hefty exit tax is being dropped. Cubans can stay abroad for 2 years instead of 11 months. Doctors still cannot leave, and new passports will be limited. But to Alicia, it is a big step toward freedom. In the provincial capital where Alicia grew up, we tour a cigar factory. Cameras are banned, but pictures at the same factory were posted by the Venceremos Brigade, young pro-Castro American. The sultry Viñales Valley of Pinar del Rio has the most gorgeous scenery of the trip, and some of the prettiest country anywhere. Descending to the valley floor, we lunch near a huge modern rock painting called The Story of Prehistory, a consolation prize for not seeing the Indian cave petroglyphs of Pinar del Rio by boat. I think it's glorified graffiti, but what do I know about great art? The red clay tobacco farm and farmhouse of a genuine Cuban family. A 53 Chevy, practically Cuba's national animal, is in the garage.
Sabrás lo que sufro por ti desde que te perdí. Jamás te volveré a ofender, te volveré a mentir. Y allí
Benito, the planter, looks like a cross between Ernest Hemingway and Juan Valdez. People to people, Benito charms the tour's ladies. After a farewell dinner at an open-air Havana restaurant, we give Alicia and Jesus our cash tips in kooks, a welcome $1,600 for her, $1,100 for the driver.
See you in America. Thank you so much to all of you. It has been, I hope that for you a very good tour, that you have been learning about Cuba, and that we could celebrate this day that was so special for all the things that you already know. So thank you so much.
Clearly, I would have have liked to have seen the Bay of Pigs, which was on the original list. I would have liked to see Trinidad, which was on the original list.
Did some bad things. They didn't take care of the people, the infrastructure. They gave them, they provided for them, but they didn't think about what their needs were, and then did the bad thing about doing the importing and not trying to do it from within.
I sat down underneath the shady tree, and 3 women, Cuban women, were there. They seemed very friendly. We began talking. They told me, I asked them about their conditions, and they pointed to their shoes. There were holes in their shoes. They said they just didn't have enough money for necessities, including food for their the baby formula to feed their children. And one of them was educated to be an engineer, yet there was no engineering job for her, and they seemed to have a sense of hopelessness about the future.
What's missing is the opportunity, and somebody else on the bus used an analogy of sheep in a pen. You get all this education, and then where do you go with it, and how do you get to live your own life? It seems limited, and it's sad.
In 2016, though political change will be slow, the economic picture is brightening as Americans are finally allowed to rediscover Cuba. Every 2 weeks, for example, the Carnival liner Adonia will cruise in from Miami with 700 American tourists aboard. New opportunities for the friendly people of Cuba who deserve a brighter future.
Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera, yo quiero Guantanamera.